To order the regular governing board meeting of the Jefferson Elementary School District for May 8th, 2019. May I please get members present?
Shaquille Ali.
Here.
Marie Brizuela.
Here.
Maybell Manio.
Here.
Manufo Leah Inga Anawai is not present. Clayton Koo.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. McCulloch, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the governance team meeting guidelines. Governance team members will review the governance team meeting guidelines and report how well they adhere to the meeting guidelines at the end of the meeting. Next is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda. Whatever it is.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Next is communications. 6A, board member acknowledgement and commendations.
I just want a little shout out for TRP. They just had a wonderful performance for the students and worked very, very hard. And it's just an example of a teacher staying after school twice a week to train our students to be the best they can be. And it was wonderful. So I just, at this time, say thank you to all our teachers for all that they do for our students.
I just want to leave a couple comments. I attended the district art fair last week. I just want to commend all the students and the staff who put together a great event. I also wanted to celebrate National Teacher Appreciation Week as well too, and just want to thank all the teachers for their hard work as well. Next item, item 6B, correspondence and superintendent comments.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of pieces of information. We have, there's some information pieces on the back tables to talk about the full and fair funding movement. Information that board members and members of the public can use to communicate with legislators. We also have address cards for legislators so that we know how to communicate with them. It's nice to see the crowd here today, but the people who need to hear it are in Sacramento, and so we hope you can make your voices heard up there as well. Lastly, Mr. Ting is actually going to be holding a town hall here in the Bay Area tomorrow at 650 McAllister, so if anybody can make it out there and express their views about the state of education funding, that would be great.
Thank you. Next item is item 6C, persons wishing to address the board. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is usually 2 minutes. We have several speakers. First is Mark Allen Pond, second grade teacher.
All right, board members, thank you so much for your time. I'm Mark Allen Pond, second grade teacher from JFK. I would like to share our concerns regarding mainstreaming in our district. 3 years ago, the district laid out a plan to have 2 school sites, JFK and FDR, become the special ed pilot schools. We have 5 special ed classes at JFK, and many of the students are being mainstreamed into the general ed classrooms. I do want to be perfectly clear. It's not the mainstreaming of special ed student that is the issue. It's the district's poorly laid out special ed plan. My staff and I understand the importance of mainstreaming a SPED student. of helping them to adjust socially and having access to grade level curriculum. Mainstreaming a student has never been the issue. The special ed plan is failing and not meeting the needs of both the special ed students and the general ed students. It has been a sinking ship since the first year, and we teachers are bailing out water, plugging up leaks, but we are still drowning. Here are the issues. Number one, too many students are mainstreaming into the classroom. My third grade colleagues, one is mainstreaming 5 students, and the other 6. This is on top of the regular classroom roster. Is this a best practice to have 5 to 6 special ed students mainstream into one general ed classroom? Absolutely not. How can a teacher be effective with that many students with their unique learning needs on top of their regular roster? Number 2, mainstreaming multiple students is a huge workload. We teachers that are mainstreaming are needing to attend additional IEP meetings, pre-meetings, post-meetings. We need to collaborate with the SPED teachers. We need to email and communicate with them. Now, mainstreaming one student is doable, but when you multiply that by 5 to 6, is that best practice? My colleague documented over 17 hours of additional work in 1 month just for mainstreaming. That's on top of general planning for her class. Why is my colleague mainstreaming 5 to 6 students, and at other schools, they are mainstreaming 0? 2 of my colleagues have had breakdowns due to the stress and workload placed upon them. These are veteran teachers, loved and respected by students, parents, and staff, and they are the solid foundation for our school. And yet the district is putting too much on them, too much on us. The district has known about these issues since last year. We've had numerous meetings, but the number of students, the workload, the clear inequity has not been addressed. I've spoken to Brent Valenti at the negotiations meeting on April 24th, and he is aware of it. But I do have a solution. You ready?
Yeah.
And this is a solution to get our ship upright, and we need to address this. We cannot take any more time. Other sites need to share in the responsibility of mainstreaming. We can't wait. Here are the positives. Number 1, more SPED students will be able to go to their home school. They'll be in their own community. They'll be going to school with their neighborhood friends. That's a plus. Number 2, more students and staff will be working alongside mainstream students. That's a plus for our whole Daly City community. Number 3, the workload will be shared across the district. And I wouldn't be up here talking to you about this at all, because we would share it. So board members, we need your support. We need action and change to put the students first. Thank you.
The next speaker is Corey Miller, speech pathologist.
Good evening. My name is Corey Miller, and I'm a speech pathologist at Thomas Edison. I'm here tonight to stand alongside my fellow educators and speak on behalf of the speech-language pathologists in the Jefferson Elementary School District. Specifically, we'd like to discuss a matter that has been the subject of significant discussion and growing concern among our department over the past year. These concerns are not recently founded, but rather the result of much consideration from the collective input of my colleagues and our department as a whole. The matter at hand and the concern we have regarding it takes root in the fact that in our district, speech-language pathologists are not compensated for attaining and retaining their certificate of clinical competence, the nationally recognized professional credential that represents a level of excellence in the field of speech-language pathology. Those who have achieved this certificate, more commonly known as our Cs, have done so voluntarily, meeting rigorous academic and professional standards in order to do so. This certificate enhances the quality of speech-language therapy by certifying and ensuring that practitioners use the latest and most advanced theories and techniques for evidence-based practices, resulting in the ability to provide the highest level expertise when working with and ultimately improving student outcomes. The Certificate of Clinical Competence requires accomplished practice comparable to that required by the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. Currently, the Jefferson Elementary School District compensates teachers for attaining national certification, but it does not compensate speech-language pathologists for attaining their national certification. Additionally, in order to maintain their Cs, speech pathologists are required to pay annual dues and complete continuing education courses. The financial hardship of these requirements has proven too difficult for 3 of the speech pathologists currently working in our district. At this time, there are 17 school districts within the Bay Area that recognize and compensate their speech-language pathologists for maintaining their certificate of clinical competence. 4 of these districts are within San Mateo County. In addition to the inequity of national certification, speech pathologists in our district are also confronted with the inequity of overall compensation. Beginning at salary step 11 and continuing until step 28, speech pathologists make less per diem than teachers. At present, there are 19 school districts within the Bay Area that offer speech pathologists higher compensation. 4 of these districts are within San Mateo County. Everyone in this room tonight is aware that the cost of living in the Bay Area is continuously rising. More and more educators and special service providers are being forced to leave the communities and families we have served for years. Please help our district retain and attract the best speech-language pathologists in the field by compensating us for our national certifications and resolving the salary inequities we now face. Thank you.
Next speaker is Janet Harrison.
Hi, board members. You've been hearing, I'm Janet Harrison, 3rd grade FDR, my 31st year here in the district, member of AFT 3267. And proud to be the union representative for my school. So I'm just going to say the same thing everybody else has been saying. The cost of living has given me no option but to start living on my retirement savings. My options are few and far between and all very unappealing. I don't want to retire quite yet. Not yet. I'm not old enough, but I need more money to live here to pay the rent, which got tripled after my husband died. Thank you.
So that was the last speaker for item 6C. There's a set of speakers later on in the agenda, and I will call you when that item comes up. Next item is item 7A, consent agenda. The administration recommends approval of the starred items on the rest of the agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda. The agenda.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next item is item 7D, resolution number 19-05-08, classified employees week. The administration recommends adoption of resolution number 19-05-08, designating the week of May 19th to 25th, 2019 as classified employees week. Mr. Vidalis, would you just provide an overview of this item? Mr. Vidalis, the resolution, resolution 7D. Could you give an overview of?
Yes, every year the state of California designates a week in honor of classified employees, and school districts pass resolutions to honor it on a local basis. So that's what the resolution's about. We've done it pretty much every year. And so this once it's passed, will be sent to school sites so that they can plan in that regard.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 190506, designating the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2019 is Classified Employees Week.
Second.
May I please get a roll call?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Ms. Manio,
Aye.
Mr. Koo.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next item is item
I'll start.
Item 12, board study session, district budget 2018-2019. The board will engage in a conversation to learn about and discuss the district's budget, specifically how the district has utilized LCFF and local funding increased revenues to both improve employee compensation levels as well as restore and expand programs and services for students.
Yes, at the last meeting, there was a request to have a study session to learn more about the budget, what it's made up of, how it's changed over time. Board members also submitted questions to me that could be addressed today. We've tried to incorporate many of those questions into today's presentation. I can't promise that we have done all of them. Very likely there will be questions that come up today that are not here. And again, if you get them to me, we will get you the information that you need as soon as possible. Thank you. Now, Ms. Kessler is going to walk us through this, but it is a conversation with the board. She has a slideshow. She's not going to go through the whole thing. She can do one slide, and if you have questions, we can ask them at that point. And then she can also let you know if that's coming up at the next slide. So, thanks.
Good evening. As Mr. Vidal said, we've tried to put as much information together as possible for you. Clearly, I don't have everything here, and
I don't think they can hear you, anybody.
Okay, sorry about that. Put as much information together as possible for you, but clearly everything is not going to be here. And so anything that's not, that you have questions, I will certainly be happy to answer them, either verbally now or be able to look things up and get back to you.
Would it be better if you were speaking through this mic that I think is better than that one? Because I don't think everybody back there can hear. Just sit in your chair and the mic is really good. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Can you hear? Okay. Thank you.
And feel free to ask any questions that you have as we go along. All right, so first off, what I'm showing a lot tonight is a comparison from 2012-13 through 2017-18. And 12-13 was the year prior to LCFF. And 2017-18 is the best year to use because those are actuals. If we use this year, there's too much budget, and as we know, the end result is not what the budget is, it's what the actuals are. And so for comparison purposes, that 5-year span is what we're using. So in 2007-8, that was prior to the recession. And then the banking industry, the stock market, and the housing market all took big hits, and that caused a lot of, a high unemployment throughout the whole country, and California was hit pretty hard from that. So also the state of California, as a result, kept reducing our funding. They kept deficiting the amount of funds that we were to get, and it ended up being from the revenue limit, we ended up getting 78 cents on the dollar. And that's something that, they didn't pay us back later on. They just increased it throughout the LCFF. Jefferson Elementary School District had 3 furlough days. So employees didn't come. They also didn't get paid. And during that period of time, there were no salary increases, although stimulus monies were used for to help with the increased premiums of health benefits. So also there were a lot of cuts in instructional programs and staffing. So LCFF came, and that was 2013-14 was the first year of LCFF, and it was supposed to restore the funds that we had lost through the deficit factor, and it was also redistributing how those funds were going to be given out. So there was a base amount that was going to be given out to every student per ADA in California. And then there was the S&C grant amount, and that was dependent on the low income, the EL, the foster kids of each district. And because and that's referred to as the unduplicated count, our unduplicated percentage was quite high, so we ended up benefiting from it. And so there was a gap of what they started out funding and what their target was. And that gap was supposed to take 7 years to fund, but it was funded completely last year. So, or was it this year, actually? In any case, the whole point was to bring it back, and it was to restore the funds that we had lost. There is a little extra money, but it wasn't really like this great panacea that was going to take care of everything. And at this moment, what we need is the state to increase the base funding. That's probably the most important thing, and there's been a lot of talk about it, but nothing has come forward yet. Oops, did I go more than one slide? I did. Okay. So originally, back in 12-13, and for many decades before that, we got funded on the revenue limit, and the revenue limit, and we got a lot of categorical programs. Back then, we had 6,059 students in the district for ADA, and so the amount of revenue limit with categorical programs that we were supposed to get was $48.5 million. But the deficit factor was applied to the revenue limit portion of that, and so we lost $8.7 million through that, and so we ended up getting just under $40 million for revenue limit plus categorical programs. Moving forward to 17-18, now we have the LCFF, which they took the revenue limit and a bunch of categorical programs, folded it all together, and that's what they started basing their funding on. So here, 5 years later, in 2017-18, we ended up with almost $59 million of revenues. So, and that was based on 6,078, well, almost 79 students. So slightly higher than in 12-13. So although, if you look in 17-18, we had 5,913 students in the district at ADA at the time, but we had declining enrollment protection for 1 year, and then it drops. And the same thing happens in 18-19, and the next slide we'll be able to see that. So basically, we have $19 million more in 17-18 than for revenue limit, or LCFF, than we did in 12-13. So this is our ADA, and our revenue limit, or LCFF, is based on our ADA. And ADA is average daily attendance. P2, which is the second period, is basically the middle of April. So it's an average for the year to the middle of April. So the red line is our actual P2 ADA. And the green dotted line is the declining enrollment protection that we get for 1 year. So as you can see, we originally went up, then we dropped a little bit in 14-15, and then we went back up in 15-16. And since 15-16, we've dropped considerably. The last 3 years, we've dropped 385 students since 16-17 to today's ADA, and that's based on enrollment. With the LCFF, that equals, with today's money, it equals basically $10,000 per student, and that's a loss of $3,850,000 due to the declining enrollment, the reduced enrollment. Now, enrollment has a history of going up and down. Earlier on, before I was here, the enrollment was quite low, like it is now as well. So that can turn around and go back up, and hopefully it will. And if not, then we need to adjust accordingly. So what I've done is, since I showed you that we had $19 million more in 17-18 than we received in 12-13, and again, that's just the revenue limit and categorical programs that folded into LCFF compared to the LCFF funding. So there's some other funds that are not included in here, lottery, special ed, parcel tax. Those funding, I just looked at the LCFF funding compared to revenue limit. However, these expenditures, so that you know, are everything in the general fund, restricted and unrestricted combined. It's not just what was charged to specific programs, revenues. So first off, I wanted to show in 2012-13 what the top part is, what certificated, the total cost of certificated salaries in 2012-13, and then down below, the same for classified. And then these are the actual costs up there. The cost of STRS, other statutory benefits, and health and welfare benefits. And so you have a total of the cost of benefits, and the same again in the classified. And then combined, you see that for the certificated, it was just over $27 million in salaries and benefits combined, and for classified, $4.5 million. We jump over to 17-18, and these are the new amounts. So we have increased salaries, increased cost of benefits, particularly STRS and PERS. As you see in 12-13, STRS was 8.25%, and in 17-18 it's 14.43%, and that's going to continue to increase for a while. And the same with PERS was 11.42%, and in 17-18 was 15.53%. And so these are actuals. When you look in that increase column, the second one from the right, that shows the difference between 17-18 and 12-13. So that's the net increase of these expenditures. So teachers' certificated salaries have gone up by $12 million. Benefits, cost of benefits, and you can see the STRS is the big one. It's gone up $3 million alone. And combined, it's $16.5 million. And then for classified, salaries have gone up $3 million, benefits at 1.3 million, and total 4.4 million. So the next slide, I wanted to show this so you can see the breakout. The next slide, I've combined them. So that top part of the is this classified and certificated salaries combined. So in the last 5 years, again, up to 17-18, is an additional $15 million in salaries, an additional $5.8 million in benefits, and again, the STRS and PERS, $3.6 million additional costs in STRS and PERS. So combined, since 12-13 to 17-18, it's an additional $21 million that we're spending on all salaries and benefits combined. Books and supplies and contracted services as well, those have increased. So there's basically $3 million increase in books and supplies. A lot of those have to do with technology. We use a lot more technology now than we did in 12-13, as well as the LCFF and the supplemental and concentration grant has been able to afford us to offer more support to the school sites for their needs. And contracted services, same thing, that has also increased by $2.3 million. There are all the percentages on the side. And these increases in salaries and benefits, they're a combination of salary increases on schedule and also increased staff. So when you see that 55% increase, 25% is from the increased salaries, and 30% is basically increased staffing. So what I just showed you is the increase in funding due to LCFF, and the change in funding as well as the change in total expenditures in the general fund. And now I'm going to show you what contributes to that. And so there are some things here that we're going to just add them up, because some things can be in one that are also in another, but they're shown in different ways. So since 1213, this is what happened in negotiations. We have on-schedule salary increases of for AFT of 25.1%, and 2.6% of that 25.1% were for additional hours of work. So there was PD days and collaboration time and such. So 2.6% of that 25.1% were tied to extra hours of work. That has had an approximate cost over that period of time. So if you look at the cost in 2012-13 to 17-18, on a yearly basis, it's $8 million more a year in 17-18. It gradually grew to that. And then for the classified, it was 22.5% on schedule increase, and that is simply the 25.1% minus that 2.6, because there wasn't extra hours, and that's how you get to the 22.5. And that is an approximate additional cost of $2.1 million. And just underneath that for 18-19, I just put down there was 1% on plus 1% off. That's not included in that 25.1 or 22.5, because I've only gone up to 17-18 in that. So then for benefit caps, the ongoing increase in benefits caps during the same period of time was 2.76%. In 2012-13, the cap, okay, because the district's contribution many years, including in 12-13, was above the cap level. But the actual cap was $700 for everybody, no matter if you were single, employee plus one, employee with family, it was $700 a month. And by 17-18, the cap has been revised through negotiations, and the employee only is, at this time, $745.07. That is now a floating cap. So that's not a hard cap. That cap will float with the Kaiser traditional plan. So if that goes up 5%, then this will go up, and it will cover it. So it covers employees at that level. If they choose to have a different plan, then this is the dollar amount that will go toward their premiums. Employee plus one and employee with families, their caps have also increased from $700 to those amounts up there. And to the right, you can see the increase in the caps it has costed district approximately $1.1 million more. And then we have, a couple of years ago, we negotiated a reserve that would help pay for future increases in benefits. And so as the benefits increase, the cap will cover 80% of that increase, and the district covers the other 20%, no, the employee covers the other 20%, I'm sorry. And that will go until those funds run out, and then we go back to this hard cap. So in order to keep it up, we'll have to do something in between, whether it's negotiate an increased cap, whether it's negotiating more funds to put towards a reserve if the funds are available, or if it's going back to the cap. I mean, it's whatever happens when those funds run out. And of course, we don't have to wait until the funds run out to discuss it. So there was also an increase in programs and services. And so student programs, there's since 12-13, because remember, 12-13 was the end of really big cuts. They had huge cuts where we decreased services to students. We skim down the staff as much as possible in order to make it through. So since the LCFF and the additional funding and the fact that we got some really good S&C grant funds, we were able to bring back a lot of programs over these years. And that in 17-18 as $7,752,000 worth of expenditures. And you can see we got rid of the 3 furlough days that we had. We added 3 professional days, professional development days. Then there are 30 FTE in all those different areas, counselors, IST, instructional support teachers, librarians, library aides. You can see all those different things. And technology, again, in 2012-13, we had very little technology. Not every teacher even had a computer. And attendance was taken in mostly by marking a page. That wasn't even done online. So technology has grown huge since then. And of course, and I'm sure everybody would agree, when it doesn't work right, you want the technology support there to help it work right. But also technology support is in part of curriculum and instruction, because where everything was done with textbooks before, now of course a lot is done on Chromebooks. After school sports was brought back with the transportation, and again, and I showed you that before, the sites received a lot of S&C grant funds to support additional staffing, additional materials, instructional materials and such. And they had to be, the S&C grant funds have to be spent on for students who are behind in their learning, the low, and not to say that low-income students have to be behind on their learning, but the funding is based on low-income students and English learners, and that's where they expect us to spend those funds. Again, you don't have to be a low-income, you can be a family that's very wealthy and struggle with learning as well. So those funds were to be spent on that. And then special ed services also increased by $725,000 for 5 FTEs. We had psychologists before, but this was an additional psychologist that was since then. And as well as inclusion specialist and adaptive PE teacher coordinators and an upgrade in the systems technologists. And then also, if you recall, they had, prior to this funding, there were a lot of cuts in the custodians, and so there were schedules where schools didn't get cleaned as often as we would like them to be cleaned, and so we brought back 7 night custodians at $500,000. Yes.
I have a question about the after-school sports and transportation. What is the transportation? Is that for the sports teams, or I don't know?
Yeah, to go to wherever the sports are. I believe you're the person that handles that.
So if the game's at Ben Franklin and it's Paula Cedar versus Ben Franklin, they bus them over there to do the game after that, then bus the students back.
Okay.
In some cases, again, Fernando, if it was the track meet at Westmore Field, they would walk over. But most of it's just to transport the school's teams to the other back and
What
forth.
kind of bus is that? Samtrans? Is it a charter bus? Or
It's a charter bus that we contract with, just like for going, we get generally the mid-sized buses, not quite the long ones. I think there's generally like 40-something seats, just depends on the size of the team.
I have a question about the additional costs for the custodians. Is that all for salary?
Yes. That cost, that, and benefits, yeah. So all these combined is $9 million extra expenditures in 17-18 than there were in 12-13. Special education costs, that seems to be a given. There are more and more requirements all the time. I don't know a district around that ever goes down in cost of special education. We're mandated to provide services, and we don't have a choice. We cannot cut those services. So as others, and you can see that the cost of salaries has increased a lot. And one of the things is if you look down at the bottom there, you see the cost of county programs. So in 12-13, this is what we paid, $2 million to service 36 students. In 17-18, we paid $2 million to service 19 students. So that's an 89% increase in the cost of county programs. And if you look at the transportation below, it's 99% increase. Now, if you'll see, we paid the same amount, but instead of 36 students, we have only 19 students in there. And that's because we've been trying to bring back students and trying not to place the students into programs there if we don't need to. The severe students, we tend to have to place them there because we don't have the staff that are qualified to service those students.
Can you verify which severe students those would be?
What about the cost?
Yeah, what kind of severe students are those?
They tend to be students that are medically fragile, that require lots of nursing or medical support for feeding and other functions. Also, yeah, our programs in the district are for mild to moderate students, and the severe students, either physically or intellectually, tend to be placed in the county programs because they've got all the other specialists who can service them throughout the day.
Also, I was saying, just even finding somebody who's qualified to do that would be difficult. Years ago, there were a lot more students in county programs as well, because you'd send your base level special ed students there as well. And then as those costs got higher and higher, districts started pulling their students back. And so that is, again, one of the reasons why we started opening up more special day classes and pulling students back that we could. But some families, the families have rights as well. And if a student has been there for 5 years and the family feels that their child is comfortable there and doing well there, they can argue or say, we don't want our child to be taken out of there. So what we're trying to do as well is just simply not place them there in the first place.
Yeah, I have a question about that. So that is still in the same county, but would that be considered a more restrictive environment when we send them to a...
Well, actually, their classes are spread out to different districts.
I don't necessarily think that the function of being in a county program makes it a more restrictive environment. No.
Okay.
They're still a special day class as our special day classes are.
And they're placed all in many different districts.
Okay.
You're supposed to be able to offer classrooms equal to the number of students that you have. If they have 8 students per class and you have 16 students in county programs, then you should be offering 2 classrooms.
Got it.
But your kids are likely going to be to different ones because the different needs are all over the place. So then here's a parcel tax. And these are 17-18 was our first year with the parcel tax. And on the left-hand side, what you see are the actual expenditures broken down in categories. And this was, the board had approved on March 8th, 2017, how these funds would be spent. And on the right-hand side, what I've done is it's color-coded. So like the 2 yellow ones equal the yellow one on the right-hand side. That's how they're following the goals of the language of the ballot language. So you add the 2 yellows together, you end up with $315,000 $100,000, and that's to attract and retain highly qualified teachers. And the service that's being provided are the beginning teacher support as well as professional development. And so that's just showing how it's following the bond language, the parcel tax language. And the total amount that we spent was $1.1 million in 17-18. 18-19, it reflects pretty much the same spending pattern. And then up there in the gray, under the goals, it says multiple goals. Down at the bottom, those are the multiple goals that there's just too many to list in there. And that's, offering like the site funding and such as well. So that's why it's listed at the bottom. So some additional information that was important, that the amount that we're spending on stipends since 12-13 has increased by $228,000, and on classified overtime, $79,000. And that is following the language of our contracts with our bargaining units. Also want to just show you again that pension costs are not finished rising. I'm just showing you what the actual 18-19 costs are, the STRS and the PERS. And then 19-20, which is an estimate, because until we get there, we don't know. And as you know, Governor Newsom does want to decrease the percentage that we're spending on that. Hopefully it'll happen. What he wants to do is do 2 years of a 1% reduction, and then also put a lot of money, $700 million, towards the long-term liability, which is what should decrease our ongoing expenditure by 0.5%, or should I say, it will reduce the increase by 0.5%. It's not going to actually decrease it from this amount. And that would be great. That's like getting ongoing funds, because at least we're not paying that. But then again, Friday is the day that the governor's May revise should come out. And of course, that's not the budget yet, because it still has to be voted on by the legislature, and then the governor needs to pass it. But by the end of June, we should know what really is going to happen with the budget. And then just so that some additional information, a 1% increase that including statutory benefits would be equal to approximately $540,000. So a 2% increase would be $1,080,000, and so on. So this is, the J90 is a report that the county puts out. And this is the most recent report that has 17-18 numbers on it. 18-19, they don't have that yet. And it's for the teacher salary profile. And so what we've got here is the LCFF districts in the county. The revenue limit districts are not on here. They, if you know what a revenue limit district is their property taxes come in above, I'm sorry, yeah, basic aid, exactly. Basic aid district, their property taxes come in above the amount that they are guaranteed to get. And LCFF districts like us, our property taxes don't cover the guaranteed amount that we're supposed to get, so the state backfills it. And that's the LCFF. So they can get, some of them get a whole lot more, some of them get a little more. Some districts flip-flop back and forth. It all depends on the values of their properties. But we are very far away from basic aid, unfortunately. So here we are, obviously the yellow line there, and they've got the lowest, the average, and the highest wages. What I did is, the districts are in alphabetical order, but the ones that are green are higher than ours in those areas, and the ones that are in pink, because red didn't, I thought red would be negative, green would be positive. In pink are the districts that their salary schedule is lower than ours in those areas under those particular columns. And then at the very bottom, it's the average of all of those. There's 11 districts there, added up, divided by 11, it's the average, and we are above in all those areas for the average. Again, this is LCFF districts, is not basic aid districts.
I have a question about that
Sure.
slide as well. Maybe Mr. Vidales can answer. Which, out of those other districts, which district would you say most closely resembles our district as far as, numbers of staff and students?
So our district is a little bit unique because we've got very small districts. We have slightly larger districts, and then there's us at about 6,000 students, and then we jump to a district like San Mateo Foster City at 10,000 students. So probably Redwood City, in terms of number of students, would be closest to us in terms of unduplicated count. I don't recall what they are, but they might be close to us as well.
Okay, thank you.
So, and then this is just to address our general obligation bonds. We've had two, since I've been here, two bonds that were approved by the voters, one in November 2012, and we've issued all those bonds, so that was $67.5 million. And then the one that last November 2018, Measure U, for $30 million. We have issued 15 million of those bonds. And so we have a 3-year window. We don't issue them all at one time for a couple of reasons, because we have to keep the amount that our property tax owners will have to pay back at a certain level. And then also, we have to spend those funds within a 3-year period. And unlike parcel tax funds, bond funds can only be used on capital projects. They cannot be used for operations, so for salaries and such. However, sometimes we're able to do something that allows us to affect operations. And there's a couple examples. Well, the first one is a really good example of that. From the 2012 Measure I, the first project we did was a solar energy, actually it was an energy savings project, which included solar. And so that was like a really big deal. And 2014-15 was the first full year that we experienced the savings from that solar project. So that compared to 2012-13, where we didn't have any solar, we had an additional we saved $381,000 in energy costs. Now, that's diminishing because energy costs, it just is. We're using more energy. Again, we didn't have so much technology and other things, but so that was in 15-16 was a year where that was included in the increase of salaries to our employees. And then the last thing, which I'm very excited about here, and this is with Measure U funds, which is what we've just issued. We are working on the workforce housing project, and which is going to be over here at MP Brown, and it will be 48 to probably 52 units, something like that. We're working right now with the architects and trying to decide which direction will work best for the district. So we're very excited about that, and that, we know that it is a very difficult area for employees to be able to afford anything. And so we're starting out with this, and there are several other districts that are doing it as well. Pacifica, Jefferson Union High School District, and very excited, and hopefully it will be a real positive experience. And then I would imagine that if it is, that perhaps in the future we can have another project like that. That's all I have for you right now. But I'm opening up for questions. If you want me to go back to any slides or discuss anything else, we're here to answer what we can.
Before we go to questions, I have one speaker card first.
Okay.
Ed Wang.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for holding this meeting. And I guess I have to say I'm a little bit concerned about how this item is being reframed. And I'm sorry, I was not at the last board meeting, but I understand that this item was placed on the agenda in response to concerns about how to make about teachers not being able to afford to live in the community where they teach. And I know some of the board members were very distressed by hearing the stories that they heard from the last meeting. I know one of the board members was crying. So I thought that's what this item was about. And we have teachers here on a school night at 8:30 because they thought that's what this meeting was about. We didn't think that this meeting... So let's talk about that. We didn't think this meeting was about how is the district spending its money. We know how the district is currently spending its money. The question that needs to be asked is, what are we doing to address this problem? What are we doing to address the problem of helping teachers be able to afford to live in the community where they teach? We have teachers we know that teachers are paid 9% below the average for teachers in San Mateo County. Teachers need a 6% raise just to keep up with the cost of living. We have teachers who are driving for Lyft and taking a second job just to make ends meet. We have teachers who are commuting 2 to 4 hours every day just to get here. When they get home from work, they're exhausted and have no time for themselves or their families. So the question is, what are we doing about that problem? The question is not what is the district doing with its budget. The question is, what can the district do to help teachers afford to live here? The superintendent said that we need to address this with folks in Sacramento. With all due respect, we need to address this with this room right here. The person who sets the priorities for this district is not Phil Tain. It is not Gavin Newsom. It is this board right here. This board is the one that decides how this district's budgets get spent. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, and that's a great thing. And what we can do to appreciate teachers is not have a week for them. Let's appreciate teachers by making it a priority for this district's budget to make it possible for teachers to afford to live in this community.
So are there any questions or comments from fellow board members on this item?
Well, my feeling was that we needed to look at our budget, not just, thank you for presenting that, but that's, for us, we've seen it. What can we do to move something around that will allow the funds to go to our teachers? We may not be able to get you right to the very top that you deserve, but at least get you somewhere that's promising. And so the things that I want to look at, maybe I shouldn't be even thinking about it, but it seems to me, well, I'll give an example. When I decided to retire and wasn't working, that meant half of the income in my family was gone. So I had to do something. That was, don't spend extra money, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. I think we need to look at our budget as a school board and decide what it is we really don't need and what is it we need. I think the number one priority, what we need, are the teachers. If we don't have teachers. On the other hand, without the classified, you wouldn't have any support too. So we need all of them. The new teachers might not realize, but I've been here since 1981. Before that, I worked in the district, and we had a strike, and that was really bad. It divided the teachers because not all of them would go out because they needed the money to support their families. So that was really an ugly time. I don't ever want to see that ever come back to this district because it just isn't fair. At the same time, we've got to look and see where we can cut because, you know, you can have a budget, but there's always somewhere to cut. I'm not prepared to say all the things I think we need to do. I think that needs to be all of us together looking at the budget. And I don't mean this kind of paperwork. that says 3 million here and 2 million there. I want to see line for line, what it is that we're spending. What can we cut out that doesn't affect the way people live? And I'll bet we'll find it. I'll bet we will. And I want to see, if we're paying people overtime, why? Do they get comp time? That's even worse. That means they take time off at time and a half. So it's costing us more. What are we doing that's not allowing the work to get done? And it's not easy, but it's certainly not hard. So I think we need to really look at everything. And that's what I thought this meeting was tonight. That we were going to look to see what can be put aside so that we will have money for salaries. And I know I would be not promising or not saying the right thing if I said we could get you right up to the top, because I think it'll come in pieces. But something good has to come this time to show you that we care about our kids and about the students and about our teachers and our classified. So I want a roundtable. And I think we can do it. I really do.
I want to say thank you to you, Ms. Kessler, for your report this evening. I do have to say and be very honest, I would like to continue the conversation, because I think what we are hoping, and we did express at our last meeting, was to figure out creative methods that we could revisit those line items, that we can say that maybe we shouldn't be doing this in this district anymore, because the reality is the impact that we're having on our teachers and our staff is not just with our teachers and our staff. It's with all of our communities. It's impacting our families. They too can't even afford just to be here. So this is a community conversation. But the reality is that as a board, I'll be honest, we are not the experts, and that's what we rely on you and our administrators to. So I would like to kindly ask to continue this conversation to see what are the items that we can actually say, put this on the agenda the next time. Let's continue this conversation and make hard decisions. They're hard decisions, but they're definitely decisions, as I agree with you, Trustee Brusuela, they're decisions that have to be made, but especially in consideration of the time, I think it's important that we, at the next discussion, that we say these are the items that we see on the budget, that there might be some room for us to revisit, maybe discontinuing, or how can we cut, because the reality is we did express at the last meeting that we do want to revisit how we can support our teachers and staff, but that's not a conversation that can be had this evening. There are a lot of things that need to happen behind the scenes, but we do rely on your expertise for that. So I do thank you for this study session. It gives clarity in a lot of areas, but I do want to make the humble ask to open up line items that we can actually pick at, like really look at and say, these are things that we're not going to be able to continue because of ABC, XYZ, and see how we can then allocate them differently, because this is a community dialogue. Thank you.
What I would like to see is we don't just come to a board meeting. I think we need more meetings and workshops, and we need to really work on it as a team, all of us. We need to hear. And it's not about you can't do it, it's about let's do it. And it shouldn't hurt the children, and it shouldn't hurt our staff. But somewhere along the line, we're spending someplace, and we can't even see it half the time. Everything's a lump sum. I want to be able to see items, every item, so that we can say, well, maybe we don't have to have this, okay? But I also want all of you to come to us as well. You're on the front line. If there's something you see that's something that you feel that we should be addressing, besides just saying a salary, help us know what it is that we're saying we're giving to you that's not worthy. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't, maybe I'm not saying it right, but there might be something that you really don't need. Tell us that. If we have to say we're not going to get as much paper or something. But the other thing is, I'm going to ask the administration. We pay high salaries for our administration. We respect the fact that you're here. Why are we not looking for more funding elsewhere? You can't wait for the governor to give you money. You can't wait for, in San Mateo County, we have the best elected officials that go to Sacramento and fight for us. That doesn't do us any good. We've got to have everybody. There are private agencies that would invest in us if we went and said, we need money for our students. Why aren't we doing that? I hear all the time, well, if we write a grant, we need a grant writer. I wrote grants a long time ago for little agencies, and we got money. If we can do that, why can't we do this for the school? If we want to give classes to the kids to make them better, I shouldn't use the word kids, children, that to make them feel better and to get all the education they can and to keep the teachers that they love, where can we get some agency or some rich guy that will give money? Look out for those rich guys. But they do. Some of them are waiting to give money to some good cause. One time, the bank that opened up in Westlake actually got a hold of me because I was supporting the libraries and wanted to know if I would accept a grant. It was like, I think it was $10,000 or $20,000. And all I had to do was to connect the libraries with teaching kids about saving water and all this. And I did. And we got books for the library and for our schools and library books for the libraries. Now that was one little thing. Why aren't we doing that for our district? And you guys are well educated, well versed in knowing the budget. You know what we need and what we can do to increase this. Help us help our employees. We're paying you. Please help us.
I just want to say, as a former teacher in this district and a current teacher in a district that pays a lower salary than this district, I wholeheartedly agree with all of you that teachers deserve more pay. However, I feel like the conversation got misled as far as cost of living in Daly City. We do not determine the cost of living in Daly City. And we do say where the budget goes, but we don't control how much of the budget that we get. So I just want to clarify those two things. We have meetings all the time. I don't like the narrative tonight that is assuming that we're not having these conversations already. We are having these conversations. We have closed session meetings and we have these meetings here. And I said this at the last meeting. I want to see consistency in these meetings and the closed session meetings. We had a closed session meeting when we were presented with what the teachers were asking for. And I didn't hear these kind of conversations that night. And I'm being totally honest about this. I actually said to give the highest amount because we weren't deciding the cuts that night. And obviously, we're still in negotiations. So these conversations are going on, but there are hard conversations, and the decisions are going to be decisions that affect people, and some people will be affected negatively. When we say we're cutting programs and services, that's people as well. And when I first got on this board, I fought for us to bring back services and to raise the salaries, and we brought a lot of services back and even brought new services. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. The way that we're talking and the things that I'm hearing, there are going to be some people in this room and not in this room that are affected negatively, even if we raise salaries.
That's true too.
I just want to say, I want to thank you, Trustee Ali, for that level of transparency, because as all of you know, there are things that are discussed in closed session that we can't express and share. But those conversations are happening. I can honestly say it's happening at every level, at the administrative level and here on the board. But I also want to say that We have discussions about just what Trustee Brusuela is talking about. We as board trustees should also be tasked with the responsibility to go out and seek for additional opportunities and not just leave that on to the administrators and the staff. That is something that we need to carry and shoulder as well. But the reality is I do want to echo those sentiments. Hard decisions have to be made. They're going to have to be made if we're going to try to meet some of the needs that are being put on us to make. But the reality, too, is there has to be a dialogue with our legislators, because the reality is those are our funding sources as well. So my encouragement is to continue to have the conversations here with us, but to also hold our legislators accountable. Because, again, the reality is when we speak to baseline, when we speak to funding from the state level, those individuals, those legislators have to be a part of the conversation, because we also get funding allocated from them. So we need to be inclusive in what we're saying. But again, the words and sentiments that are being received are not falling on deaf ears. We feel you, some of us here sitting on this very board, even our staff, we feel you, because some of us don't speak to it, but we're experiencing the same exact thing. And we're very passionate about ensuring that you stay here, you teach here, because we're one community. Thank you.
I think this is such a loaded issue that's backed by a lot of compassion and commitment. Thank you, Ms. Kessler, and to all the teachers here. We truly appreciate your presence at these meetings and your comments. And I wear the red in solidarity, but do realize that this is, it means nothing in terms of anything getting done. So we need, like what Marie was saying, a multifaceted approach. It's not just budget cuts. It's not just, leveraging who we know in Sacramento. It's also figuring out, and I'm sure all of you as teachers are very creative ways to raise more funds, and not just one or two people on the board, but all of us as a community. We welcome that. If you come across a grant or some kind of opportunity, we welcome you to bring it to us and see if we could apply or do something about that. So, yeah, I think we could leverage what we have and what we do to generate more funds as well.
And I would just like to say that I think a lot of teachers already use their salaries to bring things to the classroom that they may not be able to get. So, like I said, recently I had the pleasure of working with TRP, and I happened to have the things that they needed for their play. And it meant a whole lot to those kids. I keep saying kids, children, students, sorry. And it meant a lot to the parents that came, and it certainly meant a lot to that teacher. And I'm just saying we do need to work together. I want, instead of just hearing just one thing, I want to hear any of your ideas of what it is that we can, when I say look at the budget, move something around and help so that we can help you. And I came across one quick idea, but I'm afraid if I said it, somebody might beat me on the head.
Say it.
Well, I'll say it, but don't get mad at it if you're involved in it, okay? This is just thinking out loud. What can we do to make things like better? Okay. For instance, there probably are some employees, whether it's classified or certificated, might even be an administrator, I don't know who it is, but they don't take health insurance because their spouse has it. But I think they're getting money instead. I know that sounds like, oh, now I'm saying something to take something away from somebody, but I want to see everybody treated equally and fairly. And if there's things like that maybe we can get together to say we're doing something that will help everybody, it might add something to it, but it's not going to be a lot. But I'm just saying, think of some of those things that we could say, what's the priority, so that everybody will get a good increase in their salary. And
I agree.
Maybe I'm wrong in saying that. It used to be at one time you couldn't have dual insurance if spouses were working, they each got it. You couldn't, so they said, no, only one, you can only be covered by one insurance. So that's fine, but I didn't think that that gave the right to somebody to get maybe extra in their paycheck. It's there for those that need it. If I'm wrong and I spoke and I hurt somebody, I'm sorry, but I just want to think of something that's going to be a little creative and see what that happens, if this works out. But that's just a little something. That's not, I couldn't think of. There was another question I wrote down that I wanted to ask for. Oh, for instance, the buses for sports. Why can't we find somebody that's willing to write a grant and have somebody pay for that? People like to help children and students. So why can't we look for some of those extras that we're doing that somehow will be alleviated? And you say 100 here and 200 there, or 500 there, but all that together is going to make some difference. And let's make the salaries, which is the highest thing in our budget, make it realistic for all of you. That's all. So those are just like kind of little thoughts. I leave it up to all of you, the board, the administration, and all of the employees. Think of something that's going to be really, altogether is going to help the budget,
I have a request for Mr. Vidales. Is it possible to have a list of possible cuts within the next couple of meetings so that we can stop talking about this in a theoretical way?
Certainly, I failed to frame this appropriately at the beginning. I see this conversation as multi-step and iterative. Today's was understanding what is in the budget. Every single word up there represents a budget line. Every single position represents a budget line. You have the budget. You have the item budget. When you pass it every year, it's like 200 or 300 pages. We thought we would just clump it, but you can go into that and see line by line what things are. So yes, this is an iterative conversation in the sense that this helps us understand what's in the budget, how the budget has improved, how we've chosen to distribute the improved revenue. But we're at a point now where we have to look at it, and if we want to do this, we have to balance out the scale and do something less on the other side. So this is a multi-step process. We do it once, we come back, we'll do it again, come back, we do it again. But, and I forget who mentioned it, maybe it was Mrs. Brizuela, acknowledging that we can, my words, not yours, but we can do anything we want, or we can't do everything we want, and so we have to make choices about what we want to do.
But again, is there a way to get funding somewhere else?
We try, and we have quite a bit of outside funding already, and we look for opportunities. Ms. Manio pointed me to a possible source that we will be pursuing. Unfortunately, we were a little too late for this round, but it comes back up next year, so we'll be applying again next year. So yeah, there's lots. I'm not going to say there are lots. We have to be also skilled at making a selection about what we pursue. We don't want to pursue something that takes us over here and it's not something we're already doing because it doesn't save us anything. And we want to be able to find something that will help us pay for something we want to do that we don't have to pay for. Very few funding sources will pay for operations, but they'll pay for projects. So we're looking.
Okay, but I guess my question is, are we going to have something concrete to start looking at, or do we need to do this jointly with everyone out there and us on the board?
Well, that's part of the steps that I was referring to, that will be coming back to the board.
Okay.
Conversations about reductions to be made, starting with recommendations, but also including other things that we don't recommend, but the board may decide they want to reduce.
We're still on the budget, right? I'm sorry.
That's all we were on tonight.
We should have a task force with everybody together. On the, let's see, Julie, page 9. Page 9, it says custodians, additional cost of $555,000. Could you explain what that is?
Oh, sorry. If you took that number and you divided it by the 7,
Well,
I'm sorry, if you took the number and you divided it by 7, that would be the cost that it is per employee with the benefits. Clearly, they get the same benefits that everybody else does in the district, health and welfare and such.
But why is it here separate and not part of, are these new positions?
Those are new positions, yeah.
We never had these before?
No, we had them before, but then all those cuts happen when the deficit.
So this is back from 13. That was already included, that's already included in our budget now?
That's in our budget now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was increasing now. Okay.
No, these are.
Yeah, these are the positions that were brought back after the reductions, as well as library aides and several other positions that were reduced.
This is how much they get, 79,000.
If there are no other comments, and in light of time, I will move on to the next item.
That's that cost divided by 7.
Item 13, governance team member comments, reports, and reflections on board meeting guidelines.
Custodians do get paid well.
Pardon me? What'd you say?
We're 13 now.
You want me to go?
Oh, we're done? We're done? Okay.
I'll go. Well, since I didn't give any commendations in the beginning, I would like to echo what my fellow board members did earlier by recognizing all the teachers here for who you are, and also because it's Teacher Appreciation Week and Day, I believe, so I'll appreciate myself too. And then I focused on, where did I focus on? We will listen actively and communicate openly, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. And also I want to go ahead and just commend again the whole community and us and our leadership for passing Measure I and Measure U, and for us to get those energy savings, because I remember there was someone who was against that because Daly City is foggy, and they said that makes no sense. We save money. And also that we're going after this workforce housing. And that is something that we are actually doing to address the cost of living in this city.
Okay, so we have these guidelines. I'm sort of tired of them. But anyway. I guess tonight I did communicate openly because it's a big issue that we have here. Just want to also say that, same thing that you were saying, we do appreciate all of you, and we need to come together more often and really get down to exactly how you can also tell us any ideas. I do believe we can cut things without cutting people. We can't be without teachers. And I don't want to see us go back and say we're going to lay off this group or that group. But I do think that we can get money if we look out there and find it. And I say that if I have to do some digging myself, I'll try to do the best I can do. But we need, if anybody has contacts, anybody rich people you know. But seriously, there are people that are willing to donate money to a good cause, okay? Because we have wonderful people here. We don't want to lose our teachers. We don't want to lose our young families either. So, that's it.
I chose that I'll listen actively and communicate openly, which I think I did here tonight. And to reiterate the sentiment, we do appreciate you here, and not just here at this meeting, but here with our students and with our community. And we want you to stay here. I do want to mention again the HEART workshop that is going on at the district office on May 21st at 3:30. They're a nonprofit agency that will help our teachers and our staff get into homes, and that is the number one way to be anchored here. And they did raise the cap to 960 because they realized there is no single-family homes in Daly City for under 850 unless it's a total tear down or a condo. So it's not that you have to buy at 960, it's that you can buy up to 960. So please come and see if that is an option for you. And you know that it generates wealth on top. So and you can, participate in home share and things like that as well. So there are definitely options out there for you, and we do want you to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate all of the efforts that happen with our teachers and our staff again. And that's just not during this week, but every day. I also want to say a happy early Mother's Day to all of the mothers in our community who do a lot of heavy lifting and who have strong shoulders. I'm biased. You don't have to give birth to a child. Many of you are surrogate mothers to the children that are in your classroom and in your communities. But happy early Mother's Day. Happy Asian American Pacific Islander Month. There's a lot of things happening. I'm proud to be a part of this community in that way. And I do want to mention that here in our community, Pacific Islanders Together is an organization here in Daly City, and they have their Shine Festival at Jefferson High School on May 18th, and it's a free event for everyone. And I also wanted to mention that the Jai Jagat Tour, which is a world tour, one family tour. The tickets are anywhere from $50 to $100. There's no show here in the peninsula, but there's a show in Oakland and a show in San Jose, and I have 300 tickets. If that's something that the families would want access to, please contact the superintendent and or myself. I would love to be able to give those to the families that might want to do that for a Mother's Day weekend or the following week, but the shows are throughout May, so please take advantage of that. But hang in there. We know that you've been towing the line, and know that we're very appreciative and supportive, and we're doing what we can, but it is a collective effort. So just stay up and stay strong, and wish everyone a great rest of the week.
Could I make a request from all of you? Because this is definitely a sight to see, and I'm wondering if I could take a picture of you with all of your signs up. Is that okay? No? With your signs up?
I think speakers are coming out, right?
Can
you do that first and then you can take
Sure.
Now? Okay. I also had a request for Mr. Vidal's that we put the special ed department on the agenda sometime soon so we can get some type of report or something. I don't know.
For me, I selected we will listen actively and communicate openly. Next item is item 14, persons wishing to address the board on closed session items. I've received multiple speakers in regards to this item. And in order to accommodate all the speakers, I'm going to be calling speakers in sets of 3 so that to minimize transitions and to ensure that you guys can all leave here before it gets too late. So the first 3 speakers are Paul Hagan, Mary Kay Hill, and Carrie Green.
Give me some room. You're not all talking at the same time, right?
No. I'm just calling the order of 3 so that we don't have to wait as long.
All right. I'll try not to take my regular 20 minutes. First of all, thank you for holding this meeting. And I'd like to invite you all to May 22nd, Day of Action in Sacramento. Just, because you're talking about, what can we all do?
What day?
Join us on Wednesday, May 22nd. Join educators, parents, students, and community allies from across the state to demand funding for our schools, colleges, and universities, and to protect our schools from the billionaire privatizers. Be part of the Red for Ed Day of Action. I have one of these as a personal invitation from me to you, so I hope I see some of you there.
Time is that?
All day. All day. Come when you can, leave when you must. Just make some noise while you're there. Now, I got a couple other things I just got to make a comment on. First of all, my PG&E costs go up every year. I can pretty much know that's going to happen, right? My water costs. If I know I got to buy a new car, I'm going to have to budget for that, right? I got to budget for it. If my PG&E goes up, I can't just say, I'm really sorry, I can't do anything about the fact that you're increasing this, but I can't pay it. I can't do that. They'll cut me off. You know what I'm saying? It's about budgeting. It's not about cutting. It's not about scaring us that you're going to have to cut our positions and cut our programs. No, it's about what you've got. Let me just point out something. This is from two documents, your documents, from the 2016-17 second interim report and from the 2018-2019 second interim report. Now, I don't understand this, and I'm sure that somebody in the district can explain it away for you, but it keeps coming back to me. And that's that if you look at your projections, the district's projections for 2016-2017, you look at projected revenues for this year in 2016 and 2017, when you're projecting the out years, those projected revenues were $68,488,091. However, when you look at the actuals, what you actually have this year is $76,029,804. That's a difference of $8,541,713. That money is being rolled over every year. You don't like those numbers? Let's look down here at the fund balance. Net beginning fund balance projected in 2016-2017, $8,059,867. 2018-19 in this year's interim report, it's not 8 million, we got 13,593,254. That's an increase of $5,533,387. You don't like those numbers? We can look at the ending fund balance. 2016-17 projected $4,018,002. What we actually have, $9,379,279. That's an increase of $5,361,277.
Wow.
You're rolling over millions of dollars every year. Every year. That's ongoing money. Your job is not to roll over your money and hang on to it and keep it in the bank. Your job is to spend it. That's your responsibility. Spend it on the students and the teachers that work with the students and the classified employees to keep our schools clean and run our offices. You don't need to cut. You don't need to scare us. You need to look at what you've got and do the right thing.
So the next speaker is Mary Cahill, followed by Carrie Green and Luisa Santos after that.
Good evening. I'm Mary Kay. I teach at Garden Village, and I'm here just to support my fellow teachers and wow, you have a tough job. We have a tough job, I'm just here to share a couple stories, but I think for sake of time, I might stick to one. So it's regards to attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers. And there are a lot of new teachers on our staff, and I've been there a while, and what answers can I give them? I don't have a house myself. I've gone through the journey, but what can I assure them of what they can do? So I have a statement from one of our newer teachers. She couldn't be here tonight because she's doing some work, and she printed her picture so you could take a look.
Oh, she's pretty.
Pretty good. All right. So this is her statement. I've wanted to be a teacher since I was 5 years old, and have pursued that goal, but with more stress than I could have imagined. I never thought at 31 years old I would still have to live with roommates in an apartment. With the new math program and lack of special education support, I am overworked and exhausted every day. It is very hard to find the time or energy to do the things I enjoy anymore. I now have started working a second job to help get by. My mental, emotional, and physical health is now taking a toll due to being overworked and underpaid. This has to stop. We deserve more if we want our students to be successful in life. Teachers should be valued and not taken advantage of because of their love for children. This is from Emmy Sanford at Garden Village.
So the next speaker is Carrie Green, followed by Luisa Santos and Fiametta Dizon.
I'm Carrie Green, third grade teacher at John F. Kennedy, mainstreaming 5 kids this year, and on top of my case of 24 students. It's my 22nd year in the school district. I have a little story. It's my story, and mine's a very fortunate story. And that is that after undergraduate school, I went on to complete all the prerequisites for medical school. But instead of entering that more lucrative career, I decided instead to become a teacher. I completed my teaching credential, and it was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. And I am truly a fortunate teacher, or fortunate person because of this. Sorry, I'm very nervous. When I was hired in this district on August 28th, 1997, at the age of 28, I had amassed a student loan debt of $67,997.49. It's about 8.5 years worth of undergrad work. Throughout the following years, I spent 8 years running the after-school daycare program, 9 years running the JFK ACES program, 5 years doing after-school tutoring, worked as a private tutor, I did summer school, I directed the JFK's singing and musical program, I did ILT. I mean, I don't even know what all I did. I was always doing something, not to mention the stuff I didn't get paid for. I don't know, I love it, it's great, it's wonderful, oops, sorry. And I was fortunate to have had these opportunities to work more and to make additional money. By July 1st, 2007, after 10 years of following this strict budget and a very frugal lifestyle that included a lot of broccoli and top ramen 12 for $1, I was fortunate enough to have paid off that entire debt. It was a lot of work, and it was hard. On July 27, 2007, only 27 days following the celebrated payoff date, I was involved in an accident, which was the fault of another, which resulted in personal injury and my car being deemed a complete loss. I had to purchase a new car. The same month, I had to move apartments. This was the 8th of 9 moves that I made in 13 years. For 13 years, I had moved from one apartment to another in order to find better rents and to escape, amongst various things, situations ranging from mentally unstable roommates, one landlord who repeatedly entered my apartment illegally, often in the middle of the night, and one apartment that was repeatedly tagged and targeted and then eventually burgled by a San Francisco gang. So, in 2009, when the housing market tanked and I had received a small sum of money from that settlement from the accident, I decided it was now or never. I was feeling demeaned and demoralized by the fact that though I was a well-educated professional, I could only afford to live with roommates, multiple roommates, and at the mercy and whim of the landlords. I know what time it is. I quickly discovered that even with the downturn of the market, I could not afford anything resembling a move-in ready residence in the area. I qualified for down payment assistance for affordable housing units in San Francisco. Ironically, however, I did not qualify for the loans required to buy those units, and I couldn't afford the mortgage payments even if I had qualified for those loans. With the help of a dedicated and patient realtor, I looked at hundreds of foreclosed and short-saled homes in San Francisco and on the peninsula, all of which were tear-downs and serious fixer-uppers, in neighborhoods that we hoped would someday be up and coming. Even with these conditions, I could not afford the homes. I was making ridiculously low offers, hoping that someone would be desperate enough to accept one. Eventually, my perseverance paid off, and 10 years ago this month, coming upon the age of 40, after 22 years of having roommates and renting, I signed on the purchase of a highly discounted, crazy, smelly, filthy piece of junk house and spent the next 2 years gutting it and getting it clean. 10 years later, I'm still trying to put it back together. But I am fortunate. I have a home. I appreciate all my good fortune. After 22 years in the district, my annual income puts me at only $1,815 annually above low income in San Francisco. That's not a month, that's a year, $1,815. The only luxuries in my budget are Amazon Prime and a Christmas tree. I kid you not. I know, it's funny. My car is 12 years old. I love it. I want to keep it a long time. I have a family share cell phone plan with my parents. I have basic cable. I get my hair cut at Supercuts. I diet myself. You can tell. I continue to follow a strict budget. This is it. $150 for gas, $150 for groceries, or $200 for groceries, I'm sorry. I don't really put anything away into retirement. I'm grateful for my pension. Every month after putting aside money for insurance, property taxes, and paying my utilities, I have $316 remaining. I'm almost done. Before a raise, that was $272. That 1% raise bought me a net increase of $44 a month. I worry about what will happen when I need to buy a new car. I worry about what will happen if I have any other sort of financial emergency. But remember, I told you that this is a tale of me being a fortunate person, and I am. I'm single, I have a house that it turns out has been a good investment. I don't have to pay health insurance premiums for children or a spouse. I don't have to pay for summer camp or soccer cleats or save for a college fund. I no longer have to pay the ever-increasing, merciless Bay Area rent on an apartment with roommates or an efficiency studio. Oh, God. However, what about the people that do? I worry about the people that do. What are they supposed to do? All of our families as well. I mean, any of us. If I only have $316 remaining, I can only imagine how little they have or don't have. That's my statement. And thank you for allowing me.
So the next speaker is Luisa Santos, followed by Fiametta Dizon and Floralyn Orozco Castillo.
Good evening to our community. Good evening to our esteemed board. My name is Luisa Santos, and I am proud to have served this school district for 8 years. This district gave me my first real teaching job. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this district, as many of us do, from our first-year teachers to our 20-plus year veterans. And although it is with a heavy heart to say that I'm leaving this district, y'all know that I couldn't leave without putting up a fight. Because I fight for what I believe in. I fight for what I love. Just like we fight every day in that classroom for our students when we see inequities and injustices that exist within our system. So I fight for our teachers, classified staff, special ed, in that same way, knowing that there's inequities and injustices that exist within our system. I fight for the 1 in 5 teachers that have second jobs. I fight for the single parents who make too much money to afford government aid, but make too little to survive without it. I fight because the surrounding districts offer a 3 to 4% annual salary increase. I fight because the median price for a multi-bedroom home in Daly City is $1 million. But you see, as teachers, we are creative and innovative beings. When we are undersourced, we find a way. From Craigslist to Donors Choose to the dollar bins at Target. When we are underappreciated, we find a way, from staff get-togethers to kudos at staff meetings to notes and candies in our mailboxes. When we are underpaid, we find a way, from driving for Lyft or Uber to private tutoring to working in the summers. So when we are told it is impossible, it can't be done, we just don't have the funds, I ask you to think about a time when you have fought for inequity and justice in your community. I ask you to think about a time when you were fighting for something and you were told no. So when it comes to giving us a raise, why do you say no? When the cost of living in the Bay Area is only increasing, why do you say no when every year we lose quality teachers, counselors, librarians, and sped staff? So instead of telling us no, I ask you to tap into the creator, innovator, and fighter within you and say, we'll find a way. Thank you so much.
So the next speaker is Fiametta Dizon, followed by Florilyn Arroco Castillo and Pamela Radke.
Hi, I think I'm the perfect person to follow Miss Luisa Santos because I represent young teachers between the years of year 3 and year 5 of service. As you know, the teacher retention rate or the lack of retention happens between year 3 and 5, and here I am. And I just would like to be fully transparent with you guys. I get paid with my bachelor's plus 30 units, $57,252. And if I were to go to San Francisco, which by the way, here we are in Daly City on the perimeter of San Mateo County. If I were to go to San Francisco, I would get paid $68,611. That's an increase of $11,359. And it seems to me like riches, like security and safety and being able to catch my breath in the summer. I don't want to repeat what I know everyone else has to say, so I just want to tell you what I've done in my 3 years in this district and why you should keep me, why you should give me a reason to stay and retain me. In the past 3 years, multiple kids have called me their trusted adult on campus. I get to know my students, and they love me and I love them. Boys and girls had called me their coach in multiple sports, and I don't do it for the money, because you know I don't get paid enough for that. After 2 years of raving to my principal about my friend's nonprofit, I finally started the venture-free outdoor education program at my school, and I hope to stay to see it through and make sure it's a success. For the past 2 years, I've been part of the crew committee, which has initiated the Community Respect, Empathy, and Wellness program at my school. And I'm very active in being a part of the role of our social-emotional improvement for our students. I've formed a strong bond and efficient working relationship with my grade-level colleague and gained a fluency in the age level I teach. I'm efficient now. I'm 3 years in. I've got this, right? You know, someone else could take my place and it could just be another position to fill. It would be a smaller salary for you to cover. But I've made my home in Jefferson. I've founded programs, and it would be a shame to lose me. I don't say this to toot my own horn. I say this because I represent Luisa Santos, who's leaving, Florilyn Castillo, who is a new teacher, and all teachers in my age range and my range of years of service. And last but not least, I'm engaged to a police officer in San Francisco. Every day I come home to hear stories of what's going on in the streets of the Tenderloin, and I'm invigorated by a newfound sense of empathy for my kids every day, and a reminder of the necessity for me to come to work every day and pour my heart and soul into my students. However, I feel like I have nothing to contribute financially to my partnership, and my fiance and I are struggling to keep our head above water. Please don't take away whatever little I would get for opting out of health insurance. I have to deeply consider leaving this district, and driving just a few miles away to make a more comfortable living wage, and it's infuriating. The numbers are laughable. Please retain me.
So the next speaker is Florlyn Arroco Castillo, and then followed by Pamela Radke and Anusha Takla.
Good evening. I'm Florlyn Arroco Castillo, a first-year English language arts and reading teacher at Fernando Rivera Middle School and a Fernando Rivera alumna. I came here to tell all of you that I am scared, not just for me and for my fellow teachers, but for my students. I am scared because with the low salary that teachers get, we are unable to sustain a comfortable life in the Bay Area. With the housing prices costing us 3/4 of our paychecks, how are we expected to stay and teach here? With that, let me share with you a part of a 7th grade student's essay. Students were prompted to write about the person who greatly influenced them. A boy in my class started his essay with an anecdote about going to Subway after school. There, he saw his 3rd grade teacher who, and I quote, was the first teacher he has seen that actually cared about her job. She was also the first teacher that taught him and his class about death, and it made him realize the true value of life. Unfortunately, it was not a chance encounter. His teacher was working at Subway after school as a second job because she is unable to make ends meet with her teacher's salary. She ended up giving him a free sandwich. He tipped her $5 and said goodbye. He ends his essay by saying that as he was eating his sandwich at home, he had wished he gave her the $20 he had in his pocket instead, because he wanted to support her the way that she supported him. Stories like these is why I am scared for my students. Listen, I love my job. Most importantly, I love my students. The mere fact that I get to see them and teach them encourages me to go to work every single day. We didn't become teachers to be exuberantly rich. We became teachers because we want to enrich young people's lives. That's what we do every single day. I grew up in Daly City. This is my community. Please give us a proper, livable wage because I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to stay right here where I belong.
The next speaker is Pamela Radke, followed by Anusha Takla and Miriam, I'm going to apologize for her last name, Pianse.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to listen to me and to all of us here. I will echo a lot of the things that you've already heard. We have hardships. I have a long commute. I'm fortunate that I have a home, but I have 2 incomes to be able to afford that home. We know the regional problems. The cost of living is high here. Enrollment is declining. The health insurance is always increasing. That's a statewide problem. We understand that. Sacramento needs to hear from us. We've been speaking as teachers. Please join us. The reserve fund is for a rainy day, right? We save it because for a time that we need it. I think the time is now. If you listen to these stories here, that money needs to go to these people. As teachers, we believe in best practices. We always strive for those best practices, and I will challenge all of you to do the same. How are other districts affording the 6% raises that they're giving their teachers? Oakland, Los Angeles, San Ramon Valley Unified. They're doing it somehow. They're being creative. Please be creative. I think you can do that. Ms. Brizuela, your idea of finding the rich friends, they're out there, all those tech giants. I challenge you as well. Make a new friend. Bring in some money. The bond measures that we have, if we are getting bond money to spend on facilities, then that must free up money that was there before to spend on something else. So, thank you very much.
The next speaker is Anusha Takla, followed by Miriam Piance and Fur Kretschmer.
Good evening. Budgets. Everybody in this room understands budgets. And when money's tight, we keep what we value and we cut the extras. As for the comment that Mr. Vidalis made earlier, AFT 3267 is always on the pavement pushing for any kind of public education measure. So we'll do the work, and we hope that you will as well, for any of the Prop 13 measure that's coming up and for the raising the LCAP. You know that we're going to be out there with you, right? So as for the beautiful presentation, it brings to mind a little bit stuff my father, who was an engineer, did with me when I was in 5th grade. And he'd always tell me, Anushka, you can't compare apples with oranges. So, I mean, to compare pre-LCFF to post-LCFF budget, it looks great because there's a huge contrast. But basically, if I were to look at my own home budget from 7 years ago, it would not apply now because I'm not working with the same monies. So it would make more sense to list what we're working within that 3-year budget. Why are we here again? Why are we here in red? We're a little bit louder. There are more of us. The reason is hardship, and we are undervalued. And I know you're very aware of that. We continue to be visible. We will continue to tell our stories because we want to be remembered. When you go into closed session, we want you to keep our voices and our visibility in the forefront. We believe that our contribution to education is valuable. We are contributing a valuable service, and we believe that our value should be acknowledged somehow within this budgetary, budget planning. Why does a 1% raise and a 1% bonus feel so inadequate? Well, we heard from many of our members directly. They've verbalized exactly what they felt about that, so we decided to survey our membership. Fortunately, we had 2/3 of our membership respond to our survey, and I have nice charts for you, for the board members, and Brent, I can give you an e-copy and share that with you as well. So if you all go to our survey, page 2, there is a chart at the bottom, and one of our questions was, are you financially stressed? So the response was 86.5% of our membership, of the 2/3 that responded, are financially stressed. The following 4 pages in nice tiny font, probably 10-point, lists just small anecdotes of why people are stressed. You can read those at your leisure, but please take them to heart. Then I want to go to the chart at the top of page 8, if you'll flip to that. The other question I want you to really consider is the one we asked our membership, what percentage of your salary goes to rent or mortgage? Very basic question, right? Well, 77% of the respondents pay 40% and above for their mortgage or their rent. That's a very significant figure. So after that page, this is a 21-page document, are the narratives of hardship. They are heartbreaking, and I urge you to read them carefully because you'll get a pulse of what your community of educators is dealing with in this moment in time. So when you tell me about 2012 and 2013, that's so far gone we need to speak here and now. We need to look at what is actively in our coffers at this moment, and we need to look at how we can move money around. So we obviously did not go into education for the money. We value our work with our students and our families. Most people here will attest to the countless extra hours beyond our contract hours that we work. And we really are encouraging you to dig deeper in your budget discussions, ask the hard questions, as Mrs. Anuai said, and challenge the information that's being provided to you, and ask yourselves, what do you value? What is important here? Thank you.
The next speaker is Miriam Piense, followed by Ver Kretschmer and Alyssa Jones.
Good evening, school board members and district administrators. My name is Miriam Piense, and I am a third grade teacher at George Washington Elementary School. I also serve as the treasurer for our local AFT 3267. This is my 4th year of teaching, and I am so proud to be a part of this school district and community. I am here to speak to you tonight about why we are all here. I could honestly not see myself in any other profession but teaching. Every year, I tell my students that I love them because it's true. There's passion in my heart and my soul for the students that I serve. I always tell them that I push them because it's my job to help them succeed, work independently, and be responsible and respectful human beings. I tell them this every year. A little background about myself. I currently live in an in-law in the downstairs of my parents' home. I pay $2,200 for rent, which goes towards their monthly mortgage. My goal is to move into a 1-bedroom apartment at the end of this year. The range in pricing for a 1-bedroom here in Daly City is generally no lower than $2,400. And when you tack on utilities and other monthly fees, the total lump sum can go to upwards of $2,700. Figuring that into my monthly paycheck, that is currently about 66% of my total monthly pay, which is 2/3. With gas, car, groceries, and insurance payments, that leaves a few $100s to last for a whole month, which even for a single person is extremely difficult, if not impossible. I don't believe that I or any other teacher should have to sacrifice our well-being and our livelihood when we put so much of ourselves into our work. In our classrooms, we pay out of pocket for school supplies to supplement what our students don't have, as well as supplies for art and science projects, class parties, and class rewards. With or without a salary increase, we will all continue to provide for our students in different capacities. Resources are needed to make our classrooms run. I stand here tonight asking you to strongly consider the financial hardships that many of us face in our day-to-day lives. It's not just teachers that face financial hardships, it's the families and community members that we serve here in the Bay Area. We are all aware of that. However, teachers will not stop caring about and helping their students, and I hope you take with that tonight. I hope you take that into strong consideration because we absolutely need this. Thank you for your time.
So the next speaker is Ver Kretschmer, followed by Alyssa Jones and David Finn.
Hi. My name is Ver Kretschmer, also known as Old Lady Kretschmer at Thomas Policita Middle School. Been a teacher for 31 years in our district, more than half of my life. I long ago realized teaching is not just a job, and I'm committed to this for life, for better or for worse, kind of like a marriage. My commitment includes being one of the first ones to arrive in the morning and usually being the last one to leave in the evening. It includes packing up at the end of the year, setting up in the summer, spending countless hours correcting, planning, communicating with students and their families. Few jobs call for so much concentrated work during the day. There are countless decisions to make, endless pieces of information to process, revolving door every 43 minutes, of brilliant, spirited, intelligent adolescents who are sometimes crying, sometimes screaming, sometimes laughing, but always pretty excited to be in my class. And above the teaching day, long hours of planning and late nights correcting and miles of purple ink, usually all over my hands and in my face in the morning. Anyone who truly thinks a teacher can do their job without putting in these countless hours of outside work is extremely out of touch with the profession. It's lots of work and we stay. We stay because few jobs have rewards that teaching have. Not many professions allow for daily interaction with young minds and a chance to witness the transformation of human beings into productive, intelligent, independent, respectful people. Often it's a challenge. Every day it's interesting. Sometimes it's messy and chaotic and loud, but after 31 years, every single day is still fun. Over the years, I've offered solace, shared words of wisdom, given advice. I've given kids breakfast. I've given kids lunch. I've celebrated and grieved with them, and honored to be invited to their celebrations like weddings, births, and baptisms of their children, and I've wept with their families when I've attended some of their funerals. I've been teaching on the east side of Daly City for 31 years and recently received our 1% bonus in my check, and my husband looked at me and said, "Is this a joke?" It's $982. Is that a month? And I said, "No, honey, that's for the year." You know, a half a tank of gas or 1.5 tanks of gas maybe. It seems terribly insulting at some times, but no matter what happens, my devotion to my job and my students won't change. I'm wired this way, but it's discouraging to kind of realize that the value is so little. Look around you. You see a representation of hundreds of years of experience and countless hours of dedication. And the teachers of JESD have educated thousands of Daly City's children. We're all worth more than 1% when each of us is giving 100% effort every single day we walk in our rooms. On a daily basis, I remind my 8th grade students that we are the legacy of our ancestors and the inspiration for our descendants. And every teacher in JESD works every day to leave a legacy and to be the inspiration for 100% of our students. And that, I think, is worth more than 1%.
The next speaker is Alyssa Jones, followed by David Finn, and then Kelly Quinn.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Jones. My dream and passion has been to be a teacher my entire life. I have been a teacher in the Jefferson School District for 4 years. I love my job and my students. However, in order to pay my student loans, which is more than half my monthly income, and the rising cost of rent in the Bay Area, I have to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Mind you, I lived with 12 roommates my first 3 years here. It was awful, but it was all I could afford. My students suffer because I don't have the time or energy to put into planning as I would if I did not have to work extra jobs. I suffer because I'm exhausted all the time from working 12 to 13-hour days. I currently am making the same salary as I would in my hometown in Pennsylvania, where the cost of living is not even a quarter of what it is here. I didn't get into teaching to be rich, but I never thought I would struggle so bad to just get by. All we are asking for is a reasonable raise so we can give our students the time and energy they deserve as well as we deserve. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is David Quinn, followed by David Finn, followed by Kelly Quinn, and then Pamela DiGiovanni.
Hi, I'm David Finn. I teach 7th and 8th grade math at Ben Franklin, and I'll be fast. My ears perked up when I heard you asking for ideas to save money, because I've been pushing this idea for a while. I know we'd all like to save time. I respect all of you guys for being here. It's late at night. It's school night. One of the things that we're doing is we're preparing our 4th progress report, and then just a few weeks later, we're going to do our 4th report card. So that's 8 of what I consider to be, in the digital age, unnecessary burdens on teachers. So 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, parents can get a completely updated view, minute to minute almost, or day to day for sure, of their child's grade. Why can't we save all that money and all that time and make progress reports just available all the time, and report cards available all the time? I think that's a no-brainer, and I hope you guys will consider it. And thank you for hearing all of our stories.
Next speaker is Kelly Quinn, and then Pamela DiGiovanni.
Just put this in front of this camera over here.
You need Vanna White.
Thanks, Vanna. Hi, I'm Kelly Quinn. You might know me as Kelly Boehm. I got married last year, though. Thanks. I really worked hard at getting married. I know about 90-ish% of the teachers in the room because before I was a teacher, I worked for a nonprofit called Daly City Partnership, which a lot of the board members and people up here know too.
Yeah.
Daly City Partnership does a lot of stuff for the community. I was a after-school program coordinator and then a program supervisor. So I hired a lot of the teachers that you see in this room to work their second jobs that they're all talking about right now. I was paid more at that job, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, than I make now. And that's after I went through spending about $13,000 getting my credential. I don't regret any of it because I love my students and I've always dreamed of being a teacher. I used to teach fake children in my backyard in second grade. But that's in addition to the $10,000 left on my bachelor's loans from UC Davis. So my experience in the community is vast and wide. It goes over every single school in Daly City, including the ones some in South City, some in Brisbane, and in Bayshore. I've worked with all 4 of those communities. So I know that the average number of people in one household in Daly City is 8 people, and that's many families are in one-bedroom apartments. So when we talk about parcel taxes and bonds in Daly City, we're squeezing families that have already been squeezed, literally, physically, and figuratively. And we're the second poorest city in San Mateo County after East Palo Alto. The good news is I know a lot about budgets from working at a nonprofit because you have to cut a lot of things, including sometimes staff and things that are hard to cut. One of the things I think we can cut is all the extras, right? Circle Up, Playworks, Soul Shop. Soul Shop comes in and makes my kids cry about once a semester, and then they leave. I think that money would be better spent on counselors. We have 2 counselors that alternate. I don't know why we're still splitting them between sites. I don't know why we can't just have one full-time counselor there all the time that students can get to know and develop a relationship with. But I think that both those people need to stay and they need to be paid what they're worth and they need to be able to meet with students more frequently because as we know, middle school students have a lot of emotional needs. Another thing that we can do is we talk about taking it to Sacramento. I don't know how many teachers have enough PTO left to go on their day when they're supposed to be teaching their students up to on May 22nd up to Sacramento, but I can tell you it's probably not many of them, right? Another thing we could do instead of taking it all the way to the state, I know a lot of our funding comes from the state, we could ask the County Board of Supervisors to pass something for all teachers, similar to the Measure K funds that were passed, which was a half-cent sales tax. That raised millions of dollars for community funds. When we compare all the school districts, we look really shiny and bright as probably the 4th highest paid school district in San Mateo County. That's not good enough. All school districts should pay their teachers more. We need all school teachers to be paid what they're worth. I'm not gonna continue on my sob story. You can read my sign right here on the math and do the math yourself. Because I know that there are millions and millions of stories, hundreds of stories all across the United States. You've got a bunch in your hand. Please read them. Mine is in there too, as well as in the hardship survey. And please consider them. But also know that there are funds and ways to get this money beyond just like having all of us go up to Sacramento and protest. Yes, that's the main source of funding, but little grants here and there are not going to do it. We need our county to come together as well. Thank you.
Next speaker card, Pamela DiGiovanni.
Good evening, Board. Obviously, mine will be short. First, I'd like to say, we all know that I'm not a teacher, but I'm here because of teachers, because of great teachers in my life that made a difference, and the same ones that a lot of you even went to the school district, the President Koo, and the people that come out of our this particular district really impressed me. Our mayor from last year, Justin Manalo, Ms. Santos just did a spoken word, and we had our explorers from our police department. She was 16-year-old, and she wants a Daly City Police Department, and there's so many beautiful souls here, and these are the ones that help culminate it and bring it to fruition. Sure, you could say everybody else, but to see it's not valued. When you sit there and you hear a child and they're talking about suicide, or they're doing spoken word, they're pouring their heart out about being bullied in the school district, or many other things about their grandfather. I mean, just to hear that, this is because of Ms. Santos, it's Ms. Elaine Francisco, it's Melinda Dart, it's Linda, it's everyone. And then to do that, it's like, none of us would be here without the teachers. I mean, I know that, and you were a teacher, Mr. Valenti, because I know that you guys respect the teachers, but let's show them that. I'm not saying it's easy, but we really need to step up. This is a community. We are here together. You know that we're doing this great thing now where the city council is working with the school districts, and we're trying to bring everything together. We're not trying to step into it, but it is our community. It's the heartbeat of our community, these students, these teachers, and we don't want to lose the heartbeat, because we'll flatline. And I come to these meetings, and I've been attending these meetings for several years, and everybody knows that. We started bleeding teachers from the beginning of my attendance, where I had to sit there and listen to teachers move to Texas, move to another state, move someplace else. That's heartbreaking. And it is physically, emotionally damaging to these teachers and to their health. And the green team that Miss Elaine Francisco that just got an award for, and many of these teachers here. So I ask you, I know that you can do it, be creative. It's not easy, but a 1% is really, it's not gonna cut it. It's just not gonna cut it. And I know you don't mean it as an insult, but put yourself in their shoes, which I know you guys can do that because you're very compassionate people. If somebody did that to you at your job, what would that say to you? I know some of you already that's been told certain things in your jobs, and it's disrespectful, but not meant to be, but it can be, and we want to value them. So thank you. I didn't plan on speaking, but it broke my heart. Thank you.
So that was the last speaker card. Are there any other speakers on this item? If seeing none, we will convene to closed session. But before I do so, I want to convene closed session in memory of two individuals. Rena Cordopasi, she was a special education aide from 1966 to 1988. And Emily Estelita, she was an instructional assistant for physical education from 1977 to 2007.
Do you have any information on that, on those?
So if I'd like please have a moment of silence in their memory.
We said we're going to do something at the beginning.
I know.
We could always end with something positive.
I know.
We need to bring this up.
I didn't know until that.
Good, thank you. We will now convene to closed session. Thank you.